Hello, my name is Daisy. This is going to be for COM 250, what I learned about communication, leadership, and organizational culture. So, over the past few weeks, we have explored a wide range of ideas about communication, how it works in organizations, how power and leadership shape it, how culture determines whether people feel connected, divided, different communication channels, how to interact with different management information systems, and even how to keep a level head in a crisis. Today, I want to walk through some of the concepts that stood out the most to me among these. These lessons not only help me to understand communication on a deeper level, but also shape how I see leadership and the kind of leader I want to become in the future. So, what do good leaders actually do? The first section that really resonated with me was from Module 2, specifically Chapter 3, which focuses on power dynamics, leadership behavior. This chapter gave me 5 clear strategies for how people in leadership roles can use their influence to build healthy, productive relationships. And we begin that with building healthy relationships is just as important as getting the work done. Productivity is going to mean very little if your people that you lead don't trust you or feel supported. Leaders never play favorites. Fairness is essential. Favoritism is harmful to morale, divides teams, and makes people feel like their effort doesn't matter. Words carry weight. And what a leader says, especially during criticism, can impact people long after the moment has passed. Leaders must communicate thoughtfully and privately, especially when addressing concerns. They need to hold themselves to higher standards. Teams mirror what they see at the top. When leaders show professionalism, ethics, respect, they are creating a culture where people also begin to follow that expectation. They have hard conversations. Avoiding conflict doesn't make problems disappear. We saw that many times throughout the many modules that we went over. This set of tips meant a lot to me personally. I want to be the kind of leader who uplifts others, who is selfless, and who can communicate, not to control people, but to empower them. This chapter helps me understand kind of what this looks like in action. So kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit, Module 2, we see Margaret Heffernan, and her TED Talk was Forget the Pecking Order at Work. This one, she had told a story about William Muir, and he had this super chicken experiment where productive chickens were grouped together to see how their performance could go. But instead of thriving, most of the super chickens actually ended up destroying each other. And in a control group, there was these average chickens who essentially increased their productivity simply because they were working together. The video was great. I highly enjoyed this TED Talk. I remember the takeaway. She hits on that feeding resources to the best and the brightest creates competition, not success. Heffernan shows that human teams thrive when there is this thing called social capital, such as trust, empathy, and shared responsibility, is strong. She references a couple different studies, one from MIT, where they found that higher performing teams weren't necessarily the smartest individuals, but they were the ones who showed high empathy, strong social sensitivity, and more participation from women. Another study from Stanford proved this idea by showing social dynamics and collaboration literally make work feel more enjoyable. Heffernan's definition of social capital is the resilience teams build when people connect, listen, depend on each other. She compares this to communities, how they grow stronger during hardship because people actually support one another. To me, this talk reinforces the idea that great leadership isn't about competition that tears people down. It's about collaboration that lifts everyone up. When leaders encourage open communication, transparency, shared successes, teams become more motivated and more connected. We achieve more together than we ever will alone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the team. These are concepts that I found from Module 4. We're talking about Edgar Schein's three-level model or iceberg of organizational culture. Schein describes that culture is like an iceberg in the way that only a small part is visible, but most of its power lies beneath the surface. At the top, we have artifacts, the visible parts of your organization, which could be logos, office layouts, dress codes, routines, behaviors. These are easy to see, but sometimes not so easy to interpret. Below that are values, stated goals, strategies, philosophies, things that guide how the organization wants to operate. And at the very bottom are underlying assumptions, which are often unconscious beliefs about work, people, success, and relationships. These assumptions drive decisions and behaviors more than anything else. Schein argues that leaders can't create meaningful change unless they understand all three of these layers. If a leader only focuses on surface level behavior without addressing the values and assumptions behind it, then the culture won't actually change. This model helped me realize that communication isn't just about sending a message, it's shaped by deep beliefs that develop over time. Leaders who understand Schein's model become better at guiding their organizations through change. They recognize that real cultural shifts take patience, consistency, open dialogue. This idea reinforces how communication and culture go hand in hand and why leaders need to be intentional if they want their teams to actually grow. All right, and growth can't happen without feedback, correct? The last major concept that I'm going to cover was from Module 6, which explores communication performance and the importance of understanding your audience. Sometimes organizational problems get blamed on poor performance, when the real issue was poor communication. A communication analysis, sometimes called an audit, helps organizations examine whether their messages are clear, whether information is actually reaching the right people, whether the channel matches the message. There are all sorts of communication channels, as we know, upward, downward, horizontal, and these play vital roles in company culture. We explore this a little bit further in our class discussions where students pick a company and they sort of got to see how this looks like in real life scenarios. Some of the examples made from in our text were like employees receiving a long manual that they didn't actually read, or a director calling a meeting during lunch, causing resentment. All of these reflect communication failures, not actual character flaws or lack of effort. The chapter introduced a few questions, seven essential questions for evaluating communication. Some were, is the message clear? Was it received? Did it have the intended effect? These questions reveal how easily messages can be broken. They can also show why thoughtful communication is essential at every level in an organization, especially between those higher and lower positions. Communication isn't just sending information, it's about making sure the other person can understand and use it. That is what separates good communication from simply talking. So, reflecting on all of this, the modules that we have covered this semester, the lessons that have stayed with me, all point towards the same big idea. Communication is the heart of effective leadership and healthy organizations. Whether we're looking at power dynamics, culture, or team performance, everything comes back to how people interact, how they share information, and how they're building their trust. Good leaders build relationships. Good teams collaborate instead of compete. Healthy cultures grow from shared values and transparent communication. And strong organizations constantly evaluate how their messages are being received. These insights have not only shaped how I think about communication, but also how I think about leadership and the type of leader that I want to become. If we want organizations to thrive, we need to prioritize empathy, understanding, collaboration. When people feel valued, heard, supported, they don't just work better together, they work together. And that is the foundation for genuine and lasting success. Thank you.